For all its flaws, at least the game is more stable than Sonic 06. Yes. Sonic and the Secret Rings is basically my Sonic 06, and that I thought that the potential and concept for it were incredible, but the execution? Well, it definitely executed somebody. I personally wasn't privy to the criticism that this game got on release because I was a dumb kid who didn't know about forums, and the fact that YouTube at the time was still so new that the site's layout could be considered a historical artifact. Essentially, I had the unique opportunity to experience the game with zero bias, and I ended up sinking hours of my life into it, so I can speak with some authority on the pros and cons of the game. Sonic and the Secret Rings is the first of 2 entries in the storybook series, where Sonic dives into the world of the Arabian Nights to save it from an evil genie who's trying to erase its stories to gain power. In theory, it sounds exciting. Fantasy is a genre that Sonic thrives in. So what went wrong? You know, besides the usual. Well, the game came out for the Nintendo Wii exclusively, and Sonic Team, in their infinite wisdom, decided to make all movement options based on motion controls, a decision that even Nintendo wasn't brave enough to try for their flagship's mainline game. This ended up with us getting a control scheme that amounted to shaking and twitching your hands like a stroke patient. The game design also suffered because the idea of making a traditional Sonic level with pure motion controls was probably top-tier nightmare fuel for the game devs. Instead, to accommodate this, the gameplay was brought down to what is essentially an endless runner style, not unlike that of Sonic Dash. The combination of finicky controls, constricting level design, and a skill system where skills needed to be unlocked to get better controls, what in the bootleg Metroidvania is this, was plenty reason for people to detest this game. Apparently not me though, because I was mentally disturbed enough to almost 100% it. I still like and support the concept of this game, but I also wanted to see a version that had a better control scheme. And after years of waiting...
3, 2, 1, go!
Is this what it looks like when nature's healing? Project Reignition is... just about the coolest goddamn name for a fan game I've ever heard. Developed by Kuma Paws and their extremely talented team, Project Reignition is a remake of Sonic and the Secret Rings with one major change. Game functionality. It's an essential feature, trust me. Project Reignition does away with the motion controls and returns the power to your left thumb where it should be. Anything that involves shaking or tilting the Wii remote is now bound to a button. These changes alone could have been enough for the remake to be better by leaps and bounds, but as is the tradition with Sonic fan game developers, Kuma and their team have gone above and beyond. Right from the start, you'll notice that the level select menu theme, originally 7 rings in hand, has been replaced by the Crush 40 version of the song. The options menu is also much more extensive, now resembling the type of menus that you see in modern Sonic games. The skills menu is less messy and more practical. There's a drop-down menu for skills that have different tiers. The skills that only serve to give you decent controls have been done away with and are now part of the default moveset. We now have skills that bring back adventure-style controls. And there's a new preset menu where you can rename the presets. Thank the great genie gods for granting that wish. You can also equip skills that make the controls similar to the original game if you're a masochistic psychopath. Listen, I love nostalgia. Listen, I can tolerate nostalgia, but you couldn't pay me to do that. All of these improvements, and we haven't even started playing the game yet. I want to save the in-depth level-by-level review for the full release of the game, so for now I'll talk about my standout experiences while playing the current build. Going through Sand Oasis for the first time was the best chance for me to get a one-to-one comparison to the original. I've got to say, the changes to the controls do a lot to prop up the gameplay. That being said, the level design is mostly the same. It's a little bit too much to ask to have all of these worlds remade. A lot of the motion control gimmicks have been changed to button controls, and on one hand, I will admit that it takes away from the novelty aspect of the game, but on the other hand, good riddance. These things were either finicky to get the hang of or had a stupid input from the beginning. I'm glad they're changed. The Sand Scorpion boss was basically unchanged from the original version, save a few minor things. The homing attack targets the weak points way better than it did in the original. Yeah, you can take that tail and shove it up here. And you can damage the Scorpion in its second phase with the Speed Break. On that note, I want to go on a slight segue and talk about the changes made to Speed Break and Time Break. They've both been set to shoulder buttons. Specifically, Time Break is on the left trigger and Speed Break is on the right trigger. The way they work has also been modified, and it is categorically better. The original release had the 2 moves work based on a toggle system. When the soul gauge is filled enough, pressing the button activates the move, and pressing the button while using the move deactivates it. Project Reignition changes it to a button holding system, where Speed Break and Time Break are active for however long the corresponding button is held down. Just the removal of that extra input does so much to facilitate how these moves can be used in speedruns, because it minimizes what I can only describe as a sort of jitteriness that was there with the toggle system. Also, the frame rate doesn't tank to Balan Wonderworld levels when using time break, so that's a very big plus. One of the better uses for the new speed break controls was actually the Triceratops chase in Dinosaur Jungle, where having acute control over the activation allowed me to bypass a lot of otherwise troublesome obstacles. Overall, it was also just way easier to reach certain shortcuts because unlike the original, Sonic wasn't desperate to run forward like a hyperactive toddler. This is also a great stage to appreciate the graphical overhaul for the remake. You got the crystal clear water, the lush greenery, even the jump scares look better than ever. This world doesn't have a boss battle, but like the others, it does have extra missions. There's tons of different missions to farm XP off of. Collect the rings, take out the enemies, time attacks, beating this stupid blue orb in a race, no death challenges, no breaking jars, break the specific jars, break the specific eggs, collect specific eggs. I'll get back to this one, it deserves its own dissertation. There's a lot of variety to enjoy, and unlike the original, playing through it doesn't cause rapid onset mental deterioration. Believe it or not, Project Reignition takes it one step further yet again, this time with the music. Instead of having one track play for all the missions, Project Reignition adds 2 remixes of the world's theme to play during extra missions made by some really talented musicians. Which is just as good, because if I hear one more time, I'd be on the precipice of breaking some Geneva laws. My 2 personal favorites so far are the Act 2 remix of Pirate Storm, giving a vibe almost similar to Dragon's Lair from Sonic and the Black Knight, and the Act 3 remix of Levitated Ruin, which is just a straight bop. Getting back on track, the next world is probably one of my favorites to speedrun. For me, Evil Foundry was the proof that even on-rails gameplay can be fun if implemented correctly. There's a certain satisfaction to pulling off last-second dodges and finding some admittedly clever shortcuts. A lot of this is aided by the addition of brand new skills that are unique to the remake. You got the quick step, the double jump, the lightspeed dash, the lightspeed attack, what a callback, and it forms this gameplay loop of getting more SP, trying out new skills, using them to optimize runs, and getting more SP as a result, which is a great way to incentivize a player who's already played through the original. The Ifrit boss fight is about the same, obviously the biggest improvement comes from having button controls. Levitated Ruin is a bit of a weird one. One of the main selling points for Evil Foundry was dodging and weaving stuff in a narrow space. It's the polar opposite with Levitated Ruin, because having this wide open area but limiting the gameplay to the usual preset paths and corridors really lets you feel the constraints. The level looks super cool, but I keep thinking about how it would play even better if it was in a Final Fortress or Egg Fleet style. This is also the stage with a lot of 2D sections, which are super compact and arguably more bland than Forces. You got the automated sections where you run on the light paths to chase down some gargoyles, but they basically amount to pressing speed brake and looking at the pretty skies. Let's move on. Pirate Storm. This is where it gets good. This is another world that could have benefited from having a more open level design, but unlike Levitated Ruin, what we already have still feels great to play. We got sphincter clenching jumps, areas where using time break makes you feel like an anime protagonist, surfing across tidal waves, Sonic does the adventure pose for one of the tricks.
Who's the genius who came up with that one?
I do remember that this world had my least favorite fire souls, so coming back and trying to get them again was an interesting experience.
Oh no!
I can really feel the childhood memories coming back. The boss of this area is Captain Behemoth, not all that different from the original version. He runs away, you chase, he tries to attack, you dodge, and when the time comes for retribution,
you rip out his horns.
In the original, the input for this was shaking the Wii remote like a maniac, but Reignition maps it to a button, so I'm trading out my tennis elbow for carpal tunnel syndrome. Since Skeleton Dome and Night Palace are still work in progress, that's all I've got for the stages for now. I don't know what the plan is for gameplay and story progression and the addition of cutscenes after certain missions, so that's something I'll have to wait and see on. But there is one singular achievement that this remake deserves all its laurels for, and it's fixing that stupid dinosaur egg mission. I said I'd talk about this, so let me illustrate to you how the treasure hunt from hell systematically rips your soul from your body and claims it as its own. This mission involves finding eggs with specific patterns on their shells and returning them to their matching nests. Simple enough. Until you realize that the positions of the eggs and the nests are randomized every single time you die or restart the level. And then the floodgates open. You can pick up an egg and the corresponding nest might be at the end of the course. Not that big of a deal until you realize that picking up another egg overwrites the one that you already had. You might find a nest and the corresponding egg right after, but you won't be able to backtrack because the developers just love invisible walls. You could have the egg that you need and know exactly where the nest is, but you die on the way there and everything gets randomized again. You know, just in case you were starting to have fun or something. You might forget the layout because your brain was fried too much and hit a spring that sends you all the way back to the beginning of the course. You could be right next to the nest that you need to reach, but accidentally take damage because you're trying to maneuver this dumpster fire of a control system. And to really rub some rock salt onto the wound, this could all happen while you're on your last egg. I'm calling in the asteroid. With how many loops you'd have to do to get all the eggs, by the time you're done with this mission and released from purgatory, your descent into insanity can be so thoroughly documented they can make a movie out of it. Call it Hedgehog Day. Project Reignition makes one simple change of having the matching nest be right after you collect the egg. And just like that, the timeline snapped back into place. This fixed everything so profoundly to the point where beating this mission actually left me feeling kind of empty. Then I realized that it was probably because the original had me in a Stockholm Syndrome chokehold. Either way, congratulations to the dev team for their accomplishments so far. Best of luck for the future development period, and thank you for letting me experience my childhood in a way I never thought I could before. If you like this video and want me to make more, subscribing, liking, and commenting with your opinion are always useful to let me know. There's a new hype feature that got unlocked for my channel, so if you think the video is worth sharing, you can give it some hype points. I do have plans to make an in-depth video when the full game releases, but for now, I have other video essays and let's plays on the channel, so hopefully I'll be seeing you in another video. Till then!